On June 2023, inside the High Court in London, reporters fell silent as phones lit up and pens began scratching across notebooks. Within minutes, a judge mentioned documents tied to Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and a plan that few people expected to hear in public. Some observers claimed Harry looked stunned. The room froze. If these papers are real, they could explain months of strange royal headlines. But the biggest question remains, what exactly was Meghan's secret plan that Harry reportedly never knew about? The hallway outside the courtroom buzzed with quiet voices. Camera shutters clicked. Inside, the air felt tight. Reporters leaned forward, their pens ready. Within minutes, a judge began speaking, and several journalists froze as they heard the names Prince Harry and Meghan Markle mentioned together in a legal discussion. The moment happened in June 2023 at the High Court of Justice in London. This is one of the most powerful courts in the United Kingdom. Big national cases are often heard here. On this day, the courtroom was packed with lawyers, journalists, and legal experts. The case itself was about Prince Harry's lawsuit against Mirror Group newspapers. This media company publishes newspapers like the Daily Mirror. Harry claimed that reporters used illegal methods to gather private information about him many years ago. One of those alleged methods was phone hacking. Phone hacking means secretly accessing someone's voicemail messages without permission. It became a huge scandal in Britain during the early 2000s, when several newspapers were accused of doing it. During the hearing, lawyers discussed evidence and documents connected to the case. Most of it focused on how reporters might have gathered information. But then, something unexpected appeared in the conversation. Some documents reportedly included references to communications involving Meghan Markle and discussions about media strategy. The judge did not fully explain the details in that moment, and some parts were mentioned only briefly. Still, the reaction inside the courtroom was immediate. Reporters began whispering to each other. Phones lit up as messages were sent to editors around the world. Within minutes, early headlines started forming online. But the details were still unclear. Were these communications important to the case, or just a small side note inside thousands of pages of evidence? And that question left everyone in the room wondering the same thing. Why were Meghan's communications reportedly mentioned during a case that focused on Harry? The real answer wasn't in the courtroom argument, it was in the documents themselves. Outside the High Court in London, cameras flashed again and again. Reporters hurried up the stone steps. Inside the courtroom, lawyers spoke in calm voices, but the tension was easy to feel. Within minutes, everyone understood that this case was much bigger than a normal legal fight. The lawsuit at the center of the story involved Mirror Group newspapers, a large British media company. It publishes well-known papers such as the Daily Mirror, the Sunday Mirror, and the Sunday People. These papers have millions of readers across the United Kingdom. In 2019, Prince Harry filed a legal claim against this company. He accused some journalists and private investigators of gathering information about him in illegal ways between 1996 and 2011. Those years covered a large part of his teenage life and early adulthood. The most serious claim involved phone hacking. Phone hacking means secretly listening to someone's voicemail messages without their permission. A person might guess a simple password and then hear private messages meant only for the phone owner. This practice caused a huge scandal in Britain more than a decade ago. Several newspapers were accused of using these tricks to get secret information about celebrities, politicians, and even crime victims. Because of that history, courts began reviewing many cases connected to the media industry. Harry's lawsuit became one of the most watched. Then something unusual happened. In June 2023, Prince Harry personally appeared in court to testify. This means he answered questions under oath. Oath means a legal promise to tell the truth. Royal family members almost never do this. In fact, Harry became the first senior royal in more than 130 years to give evidence in a British court. During hours of questioning, lawyers showed him old newspaper stories and asked how reporters might have learned the details. Some questions were calm. Others were sharp and direct. But while lawyers searched for proof about phone hacking, another layer of information quietly entered the discussion. Court evidence often includes emails, notes, and communication records. These documents sometimes reveal how stories developed, or how people planned to respond to them. And according to several media reports, that is exactly how references connected to Meghan Markle appeared during the hearing. But this raised a new mystery. If the lawsuit was about illegal news gathering, why would private discussions about media strategy suddenly matter? And that small detail may explain why the tension inside the courtroom started to grow. Could those documents reveal something about how the couple handled media pressure? But the story doesn't end there. This is where it turns. Phones buzzed across newsrooms in London and Los Angeles. Editors refreshed their screens again and again. Inside the courtroom, reporters scribbled fast as the hearing continued. The tension was clear. Within minutes, people realized this case was not just about old newspaper stories. It was about years of pressure around Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. To understand that pressure, we need to go back a few years. In January 2020, Harry and Meghan made a shocking announcement. They said they would step back from their roles as senior members of the British royal family. Senior royals are the family members who carry out official duties for the monarchy. This decision quickly became known in the media as Megxit. It was a nickname created by newspapers. Soon after the announcement, the couple moved to California in the United States. There, they began building a new life outside the royal system. They signed media deals with companies like Netflix and Spotify. These deals involved documentaries, podcasts, and storytelling projects. But even while living thousands of miles away, the media attention did not stop. Prince Harry has often said that press pressure played a huge role in their decision to leave royal duties. He connected this feeling to a painful memory from his childhood. In 1997, Harry's mother, Princess Diana, died in a car crash in Paris, France. She was only 36 years old. At the time, photographers were chasing her car. These photographers are called paparazzi, people who take pictures of famous individuals. That tragedy deeply shaped Harry's view of the media. Over the years, he became more willing to fight newspapers in court. His lawsuits argue that some reporters crossed legal lines to get stories. Supporters say Harry is protecting his family's privacy. Critics say the legal battles keep the couple in the spotlight even more. And that is why the courtroom mention of possible communications about media planning caused such strong reactions. If Harry believed the press was the main source of the problem, some observers began asking a difficult question. Could there also have been careful planning about how to respond to that media pressure? And here's the twist. Even a small hint of strategy can change how people see the story. Because if planning happened behind the scenes, it might show that the fight with the media was more complex than it first appeared. But the most surprising piece of the puzzle had not yet been fully explained. The answer was hidden inside documents that very few people had actually seen. Was the couple only reacting to media pressure, or were they also planning how to respond publicly? And that detail changes what happens next. The courtroom felt unusually quiet. Papers shuffled softly. A lawyer turned a page, and several reporters leaned closer, trying to hear every word. Within minutes, a small reference inside a stack of documents began drawing attention. These papers were part of something called the legal discovery process. Discovery is a rule in court cases. It means both sides must share evidence before the trial moves forward. This evidence can include emails, notes, letters, phone records, or internal messages. In 2023, lawyers reviewing the evidence in Prince Harry's case against Mirror Group newspapers examined many such documents. Some were old newspaper records. Others were communication notes connected to media stories. But according to several reported accounts from journalists in the courtroom, a few documents appeared to mention conversations about how certain stories might be handled publicly. These references were not fully explained during the hearing. Some parts were only briefly described by lawyers. Because of that, many details remained unclear. Still, the moment created instant curiosity among reporters. Inside the room, journalists quietly typed updates to their editors. Outside, news alerts started appearing on phones across Britain, the United States, and other countries. Headlines began asking whether these communications hinted at a larger plan for handling media attention. Experts quickly warned people not to jump to conclusions. In court, documents are often discussed in short pieces. Without the full context, it is easy to misunderstand what they mean. For example, many public figures work with public relations teams, often called PR teams. A PR team helps someone manage how information is shared with the public and the media. Planning responses to stories is a normal part of that work. But the possibility that such planning existed during a legal fight with newspapers created a new layer of questions. Was this simply routine communication about dealing with press coverage? Or did the documents suggest something more organized? Even reporters who had covered royal news for years admitted they were unsure. And here is the twist. The most important detail was not what the documents said, but who might have been involved in those conversations. That single question began spreading through newsrooms within hours. What exactly did those documents suggest about Meghan's role? Because the next move doesn't happen in public. The courtroom was almost silent again. A few reporters leaned back in their chairs. Others stared at their laptops, reading their notes one more time. Something important had just surfaced during the discussion of the documents. Within minutes, journalists began comparing what they had heard. Some whispered quietly. Others rushed to send updates to their editors. Slowly, the picture started to become clearer. Big reveal. According to several media reports about the hearing, some documents appeared to reference conversations about a possible media strategy connected to Meghan Markle during periods of intense press coverage. A media strategy simply means a plan about how information is shared with reporters and the public. Many famous people, companies, and even governments use media strategies. It can involve choosing when to speak, what message to give, or how to respond to negative stories. In this situation, the reported documents suggested that discussions may have taken place about handling press attention during difficult moments for the couple. But it is very important to understand one key point. The court discussion did not prove wrongdoing, and there has been no official confirmation that any secret plan broke laws or rules. The references only suggested that certain communications about media responses may have existed. However, another claim quickly appeared in media commentary. Some observers claimed that Prince Harry may not have known every detail about those communications at the time. This claim remains unconfirmed, and no judge publicly stated that Harry was unaware of the discussions. Still, the idea created a dramatic twist in the public story. For years, the narrative focused on Harry fighting against intrusive newspapers. But if internal planning about media messaging also existed, critics argued that the situation might be more complicated than people thought. Supporters responded differently. They pointed out that planning how to deal with press pressure is common for public figures, especially when facing intense media scrutiny. So the debate quickly split into two sides. Was this simply normal public relations work? Or did the documents hint at something more strategic behind the scenes? Here is another detail that made the situation even more interesting. These communications appeared during a lawsuit about illegal news gathering, not about media strategy itself. That meant the court was not actually judging whether such planning was right or wrong. The court's main question remained the same. Did newspapers illegally gather private information about Prince Harry between 1996 and 2011? But the mention of internal communication still added pressure and curiosity to the case. And it raised a new legal question that few people had considered before. If these communications existed, could they influence how the judge viewed the broader story? Could they affect the legal arguments in any way? Or were they simply background details that would not change the final decision at all? Lawyers on both sides understood that even small details can shape how a case unfolds. And that meant the next stage of the trial became even more important. Because sometimes the most dangerous moment in a legal battle is not the accusation itself. It is the interpretation of the evidence. Could these reported communications affect the legal arguments in Harry's case? And that's where the real trap is hidden. Outside the High Court in London, cameras flashed again as lawyers stepped down the stone stairs. Reporters rushed forward with microphones. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere had grown heavier. Within minutes of the hearing ending, legal experts were already debating what the documents might mean. The case itself was still focused on one main issue: phone hacking by Mirror Group newspapers. Prince Harry claimed that reporters working for papers like the Daily Mirror used illegal methods to gather private information about him between 1996 and 2011. In British law, cases like this are handled in civil court. A civil case is different from a criminal case. It usually decides whether someone must pay money for harm or wrongdoing, not whether someone goes to prison. The judge overseeing this part of the case was Justice Timothy Fancourt of the High Court of Justice. He has handled several cases connected to the wider phone hacking scandal that affected British newspapers during the past decade. His job is to study the evidence carefully. That means looking at documents, testimony, and records to decide what facts are reliable. Judges must separate proof from speculation. Speculation means guessing something without full evidence. So where do the reported communications about media strategy fit into this? Legal experts say that such communications do not automatically change the core question of the case. The central issue is still whether newspapers illegally accessed private messages or used investigators to gather information. But context can matter. Sometimes lawyers use background information to challenge credibility. Credibility means how believable a witness or claim appears in court. If lawyers believe certain details affect the overall story, they may try to highlight them during questioning. That does not mean those details decide the case. But they can influence how arguments are presented. And in a case involving famous people, every detail is examined closely. Another important point is timing. Much of the alleged hacking happened between the late 1990s and early 2000s. That means the court must examine events that took place more than 20 years ago. Finding clear proof from that time can be difficult. Records may be incomplete. Memories may fade. That is why judges rely heavily on documents and reliable evidence. Still, public reaction often moves faster than the legal process. Within hours of the hearing, television panels and newspaper columns began discussing the possibility of a hidden media plan. Some commentators said it complicated the story. Others said it changed nothing legally. The truth is that the court had not yet reached a final decision. But perception, the way people understand a story, can shift very quickly. And for public figures like Harry and Meghan, perception often shapes the headlines seen around the world. So another question began spreading through the media. Even if the documents do not change the legal outcome, could they change how people view Harry's battle with the press? And that might matter more than anyone expected. Could this controversy change how people view Harry's fight with the media? But the story doesn't end there. This is where it turns. Outside the High Court in London, reporters shouted questions, and cameras clicked constantly. Social media feeds were alive with notifications. Inside, the courtroom had emptied, but the story was far from over. Within minutes, the world began reacting to the reports about the documents and the possible media plan linked to Meghan Markle. By mid-2023, news about Harry and Meghan's legal battles had reached millions globally. Newspapers in the United Kingdom, United States, and other countries quickly published headlines claiming a secret strategy had surfaced. Some stories were careful to note the details were reported and unconfirmed. Public opinion split almost immediately. Polls conducted in the UK earlier in 2023 showed mixed feelings about the couple. Some people believed Harry and Meghan were simply protecting their privacy. Others thought the reports of internal planning meant they were manipulating media narratives. Analysts and royal commentators weighed in as well. Many explained that it is common for public figures to work with PR teams, short for public relations teams. PR teams help people communicate with journalists, manage stories, and control how information is shared. That is normal for celebrities, politicians, and even companies. But critics argued that in this case, the court context made it more complicated. If communications about handling press attention existed during a lawsuit about illegal media behavior, some wondered whether the plan could have influenced events indirectly. Could it have shaped which stories appeared or how information leaked? Social media exploded with heated debate. Some hashtags praised the couple for defending themselves. Others accused them of hiding the truth. Even journalists admitted that short courtroom mentions could be misunderstood if read without context. Here's the twist. The media frenzy was not about legal guilt or innocence, it was about perception. How the public understood these documents could change the narrative entirely. Yet, the most important mystery remained. The judge had referenced documents, but the full context was not revealed publicly. Many details were still unknown. People were left asking a key question. Had Prince Harry really been unaware of the reported strategy? Or was the situation more complicated than it appeared to the public? And the answer would only come with the final clarification. What did the judge actually confirm about the documents? The real answer wasn't in the rumors, it was in the final clarification. By late afternoon, the High Court in London had grown quiet. The courtroom, once filled with cameras and murmurs, was almost empty. Reporters packed their bags, some looking tired, others still typing their notes. The tension from earlier in the day seemed to linger in the air. During the hearing, the judge reviewed dozens of documents connected to Prince Harry's lawsuit against Mirror Group newspapers. Many pages were about the alleged phone hacking incidents from 1996 to 2011. That remains the main legal question. Did reporters use illegal methods to get private information about Harry? Some papers mentioned communications that reportedly involved Meghan Markle and ideas about handling media attention. These references had caused a lot of speculation in the news. But the judge clarified that these mentions were small parts of the overall evidence. They were not central to proving whether any laws were broken. Judges in civil cases, like this one, look carefully at all evidence. They must separate what is relevant from what is background information. Even though media communications were discussed, they do not automatically affect the legal outcome. Their main role is to provide context, not to judge right or wrong. Yet, the discussion of these communications captured public attention. Around the world, newspapers and social media debated whether Harry had known about every detail. Some claimed he was unaware. Others argued the references were minor. There has been no official confirmation of either claim. The hearing also reminded the public how complex cases involving famous people can be. Even minor details can appear important, and perception often spreads faster than facts. Legal outcomes take time, but headlines move instantly. For now, the main mystery from the hook, the so-called secret plan, remains partly unresolved in public discussion. The documents were mentioned, but only a few specifics were made clear. Some details may never be fully revealed outside the courtroom. What is clear is that this case has become one of the most closely watched media stories about the royal family in decades. And it may not be the last chapter in Harry and Meghan's long battle with the press. The court gave a legal clarification, but the bigger story, the public and media reaction, will continue unfolding for months. Will future court cases reveal even more about the battle between the royal family and the press? Because the next chapter of this fight may happen far from the palace walls. The story of Harry, Meghan, and the courtroom documents is far from over. Now it's your turn to share your thoughts. Do you think celebrities should create media strategies to protect themselves? Should royal family members fight newspapers in court, or stay silent? Do you believe the full truth about these documents will ever become public? If you want more deep royal investigations like this, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story.